Thank you for joining us again for Danger Aware Animation Department. My name is Ray Howell. I am the Chief Information Officer for Danger Aware, and we are a charity for the prevention of abuse by educating the young and vulnerable through play and entertainment. And to that end, we need to build the entertainment part of our business. And we've been doing so for now 4 years, and I've been learning how to do animation just because we don't have the money to pay somebody to do it. I'm a volunteer, so if you can help, if you are an animator, if you want to learn Moho and help by helping us to teach the young and vulnerable about the early stages of abuse, how to call it out, and how to prevent the later stages of abuse, then come help us. So let's take a look here at Danger Aware real quick. So on our website, you can see that we have an upcoming Children Have Talent contest. That will be on April 15th, which is our anniversary. We actually established Danger Aware on April 15th 4 years ago, this year. So we have one more tryout for our contest, and that'll be on March 4th. So if you know any children that have talent that want to compete in our contest in Fresno, California, contact us, give us a phone call. You can visit our website, click on this, and it'll bring up the PDF that shows you the full details. So take a look. We also have our ebooks and our games. So our games are very simple right now, but as we get donations, we'll be able to build more and build better ones. We have our comics. We have our contests. Right now, I'm not sure there's any contests running. I'll take a look at that later, but we have our comics that are the Bugillagers that we're working on right now. And then you can see we've got our Respect My Personal Space Astronaut, and there's a cartoon here. Then we've got the Danger Aware song, Super Aware Kid, Socializing in the Schoolyard cartoon. Check it out. Please help us change the paradigm of abuse awareness by educating the young and vulnerable about the early stages of abuse. So as we left off, since Sunday, I've disassembled this character, deleted all the bones, put them all back, reparented everything, got everything aligned, but I didn't really change what we worked on. So, where we left off, we had just done the eyes, and I had forgotten to do the switch mouth. Well, it's not really a switch, but it simulates a switch. So if you were wondering why do I create my mouth the way I do, since that would make it very difficult for lip syncing, but as you can see, this, let's go into the animation. This configuration allows any shape and look of the mouth, so we can create every phonetic shape that we need, and we're going to do that next. So I was going to do head turn, but I want to get the mouth completed first. So as you can tell, this is the mouth width, this is the jaw up and down, this is the mouth open and close, and this is the smile and frown, and they're additive. So even though this one is affecting the opening and closing of the mouth, so is this one. So they both have control, but they both relinquish control, but in an additive manner. So whatever I do with this one gets added to whatever I do with this one. That is important to understand, and to understand that the only reason that works is because in these actions I am resetting at the midpoint. Where these bones come to rest, they are at 0 when you're looking at the bone constraints. So here we've got bone constraints of minus 32 to 32 degrees. This is a range of degrees of angle of inclination. And between minus 32 and 1 is 32 steps. Between 1 and 32 is another 32 steps for a total of 64. And then with 0 in the middle, that is 65 positions when I'm using these particular constraints. So I apply that to 65 positions on the timeline of the action. And that gives me the very center being 33, and that is when this bar is going to be pointed straight up and down. And that's where we reset. It's not set it to 0 or set it to what it was. We actually have to use the reset in order to allow the functionality to be additive and separate. Okay? I hope that makes some sense. So anyway, we have our complete mouth rig here where we can do the mouth, we can do the tongue, and we can do the tongue in and out of the mouth. So, if we want to lick the lips and so on and so forth, or stick the tongue out and go blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that's all great, but most animators use switch layers where they can quickly select what it looks like to be saying ah, or what it's like to say oh, or b, or whatever. So I did the same thing, but I've applied it to these additive controls. So once we're done, we have complete control of the mouth, and we will have our phonetic mouth just like a switch layer, but it's not a switch layer. What it is this bone will affect where these bones are all lying, okay? So the first thing we want to do is bring in what is our phonetic chart. Well, I've got it on here, and it's called the DAN, Danger Aware Phoneme Wheel, and I created this from looking online at everyone else's phonetic systems, and then I decided, well, since I'm going to be using a bone that's going to rotate, I want to make my phonetic wheel a circle. So I did. So right now it's invisible because I only want it to come on when this little bone acts as a switch. So we're going to create an action for that bone, and we need to be in the bone layer when we do that. And I may have already created it. Let's see here. Yeah, I created the action, but I haven't put anything in it yet, as you can tell, because it's grayed out. So I'm going to double click on it. That opens it up. Now, we only need off and on here, but we want off to be the default. So we want at least 3 positions. And I've learned it's best to go to at least 5. So for our lowest position is going to be 1 as usual. So we're going to just rotate this bone all the way down. And then at 5, not 65, but at 5, that's going to be our maximum and where it's all the way up. And in fact, I want to undo this because I think we don't need that large of a range on our constraints. So we're going to go to our constraints, and let's just go -7 and 7, and that will give us 15 degrees of movement, and that's plenty for what we're doing. And so now we're going to go to 1 and rotate the bone down, and you can see it's not going to move quite so much. Then we're going to go to 5, and move it up. So now we can move it between the 3 likely positions, but not have to move it a large amount. So at down and at center, it's going to be off. So we're going to go in here to the phonem wheel, and we're just going to make sure that visible is off and apply it so that it takes effect. Then we're going to move forward to position 4, and we're going to make it become visible and hit apply. And now it'll stay visible from that point forward, but when it's in its rest state, it'll be off. So let's now go back to the main line, and now as we're animating our character, if we need to go, oh, how do I do this particular phonem, we can flip on our switch. I didn't mean to move that up. We can flip on our switch and look at our chart. Okay, so here is my Dangerware Bugillager's mouth phonetics. So I built a Bugillager's mouth quite a while back, so I probably should update this chart. But as you can see, we go from A all the way around to M, and then all the way around to A and back to A. So even though it's not exactly one leads to the next, it's fairly close, as good as I could make it. So now what we need to do is create the phonetic at each of these positions, with being straight up and down being our 0. So remember I mentioned in the last video that our bones can have any angle setup we want to apply to it. So when we go into the constraints, you're going to find that this bone is different than what I've done with all the others. With the others, we're going from a negative value to a positive value, with 0 being in the center. But with this character bone, or this selection bone, I want it to rotate around the wheel, and as it goes to each position, the mouth is going to take on that look. Okay, and that means I need this bone to rotate all the way around to here, and I need it to reset back to this. I don't want it to reset to this, which is the letter M, which every phonetic shows it being a slight frown. It's not me, I found it online. Anyway, so we're going to look at the constraints on that bone. You can see that I'm going from minus 358 degrees to 0, where our reset point is. Okay? So think of positive numbers and 0 being your default value. So when Moho is looking to do with something, it's going to reset at 0, or you can reset in a positive position. You can reset in a negative position, but to control your bone, you need to set your degrees. Now, we don't have to have any constraints, and it would still rotate. The problem is it would rotate around and extra round, and at that point it would no longer be pointing to any of these values because it would be further on the timeline. So with a complete circle of 360 degrees, we can represent different actions on the timeline as at 360 different positions. But as soon as you go to 361, you are now beyond the timeline where we set everything. And rotating the bone keeps on going on the timeline past the full circle. So your actions will not just repeat as your bone completes the circle. Think of it more as a spiral, with each completion moving you to the next layer. That is why we need the negative 358 degrees, so the bone will not continue through the spiral, but stops before completing the loop of the first spiral. 358 is 2 degrees short of a complete loop. Let's get into animating the action for the mouth. So we go into the phonetic mouth, and as I said, 0 is our reset point. Now I'm going to turn on my phonetic wheel so I'll have my reference to work out what the mouth looks like at each position. But here we are at 0, and in order to make it stick back to this at 0, we need to select all of these bones here, reset them to their static position. Resetting, yes, it takes the numbers to these numbers, but it's not the same if I simply put in these numbers. If I put in the numbers, it's setting the value. But when I reset, it's releasing the value to those numbers. It's hard to explain, but there's a difference. Yes, those are the numbers being used, but they are free. They're not a set value. So now, straight up and down, we're 0. So just like when we're doing colors, at 1, we want black and white, and then at 2, we begin with our actual colors. Here at 0, we want our mouth to be neutral. And so now we've reset everything, and it's at neutral. So now I'm going to advance to position 1 on the timeline, which moves that bar. We can't see it happening, but it does happen, or it will. And we can make this system as long as we want. And since we've got 12 phonetic mouths, we should do it in a series of 12. And so we're going to go to 120 for our maximum position on this, and rotate our bone all the way around. Whoops, not that bone. Not those bones. I'm going to undo that. So at 120, we're going to hit B for bone, and we're going to grab this bone and rotate it all the way to its maximum negative value of minus 258. So now as I move along my timeline, I'm going to point at a different mouth shape at each position. So now by using 120 and with 12 values, we can go in series of sets up to 12. The first one will be a little bit short because of the 0 reset, but from 1 to 12 will be 11 positions holding our or a mouth shape. So now we need to make our mouth here look like this mouth here. We're going to go and do our A. So basically we increase the smile, which is here. And make the tongue a little wider. And it'll be tongue colored, so when the tongue and teeth are showing, it'll be obvious. Right now you're thinking, oh, that just looks like teeth. Well, yeah, because it's black and white. But we'll fix that when we get into the coloring. So now, all right, B for bone, and select all these bones, not that top one. There we go, and Control F. So does that hold it? Let's see. So now TH, again, we're going to leave the mouth the way it's open now. We're going to bring it down, bring it down to a bit of a frown. Went almost flat on the bottom. Let's bring the lips up a bit. And then the tongue is going to be sticking out of the mouth and barely touching the bottom lip, while also touching the teeth on the top So we're going to make it longer, just a bit, just like that. So there's our TH. We're going to move to 20, Control F. There we go. And then move to 21. And now we're going to do L. L is the mouth is even more closed. The tongue is back into the mouth. And we're going to bring the tongue down so we're seeing the top of it, just touching the teeth. And let's open the mouth just a bit more. Right there. We don't want to see the bottom teeth at all. Right. And the tongue should be narrower. So, whoops, the bottom here. There. So there's L. Then we're going to jump to 30. Control F. And then 31. We're going to get the E. So we're going to be smiling a bit. Mouth will be open more. We want the jaw to come up. And then the tongue moved up in between like that. And wider. Cheese. Get it back in the center. Let's just try resetting its angle here. Alright, and then we're going to go to 40 and Control F. And oh, I bet I need those. Well, let's see. Let's test it. Yeah, so now the mouth is staying static until we move to the next one. And so now here, we're going to go S. So with the S, we're going to bring the jaw up so that the teeth are touching almost. Just leave just a slight gap, and there's got to be more of a smile. And we're going to close the mouth just a bit. So S. Let's take a look at our mouth. Oh, I know, we need to narrow the width of the mouth a bit. So we're going to bring just like that. There's our S. Or N, if you're trying to make an N sound. Although I would argue that N might be a little bit more tongue upward. Alright, so we're going to go to 50. Control F. Okay. So now at 60, or 51 I mean, we need to make the F. So we want to bring the jaw down. No, about right there. Close the lips. And bring it to just about flat on the bottom again. So there we go. That looks like a good F. Like the teeth are contacting the lips. That's actually the tongue though. Let's move the tongue down. Oh, that's the bottom teeth. Okay. So right about there. Let's open the mouth a little bit. Yeah, there. The teeth are impacting the lip. So, I could add another bone to make the lip thin right there for a bit, but we have to do it for the top as well. So there's our F. We're going to move to 60 and Control F. And now we want M, which is the lips closed all the way, and just a slight frown, so not quite. Let's get far away from the bone for fine tuning. So M right there. Now we're going to move to 60, 70 and Control F. And now we want to make it look like Q. So this is where it makes a big jump from what it is to what it would look like. So for Q, we want the mouth open. We want the jaw open. The tongue should basically be in the middle and down a bit, and wide and flat. So let's make it wide and flat. There we go. So it's got just a slight bit of curve for Q. And then we're going to bring our lips together, so a little bit narrower. And I think that's it. There's our Q. Here it's more rounded, but basically you're going to see the teeth and the tongue behind it, and the lips are going to shape a very hard O. Alright, and then we're going to go to, oh, we didn't copy this. Let's see if I can copy it now. Okay, so it copied it, but it locked our rotation. We're no longer, oh, it is rotating. Okay, but during the Q it's not. So let's grab this bone and remove anything on the red line for that bone at this position. There we go. So now we're getting our full swing, but I forgot to do it here too. How could I do that? What's going on here? 51. Right, I'm just going to Control X, step back. Alright, so we're going from that to that. Alright, so there's our F, and 60, and Control F. And then now we're going to make our M. Alright, and then 70, Control F, 71, we're going to make our Q, oops, open, narrow, wide. Yeah. Tongue wide. There we go. And flat. Alright, so there's our cue. So now we're going to go to 80. Control F. We've got our cue. We're going to move on to the next one. And that's our R sound. There we go. So we want it to be more open than the cue and definitely wider than the cue. And the tongue just barely peeking past the teeth. So make the mouth wider, but not too much. We're going to open it more. We're going to open the jaw more. And then we're going to bring the tongue down. And we want to make it round again, so, or narrower. And so it just barely peeking out. So there's our R sound. 90. Control F. And move around to 91. And this is going to be the sound. So again, we're going to make the mouth wider than the R. And pretty much that's it. Get the teeth out of there completely. So we're going to bring the jaw down a little bit. And we want to see the tongue, but just barely. So let's bring the tongue down right like that. And our frown should come up a little less smiling. About right there for that. And then 100. Control F. 101. And now we do O. So we want big opening, very rounded. Whoops. So big opening. Lots of the top teeth, but no top gums. There we go. And the jaw down all the way. It shows them there. Let's show some upper gums. There we go. And then the bottom teeth should be just barely showing. And the tongue should be up in the middle of the mouth. There it is. Actually, there it was. Make it wider. And then upward. It's kind of rounded. So there is our upward tongue. Let's bring it down a bit. So there's our O. Let's make the mouth a little more round. O. Alright, and then 110. Control F. And now we do Ah. And Ah is a lot like O, but the mouth is even wider. And the teeth are completely out of it. Just barely showing. And the tongue comes down again. And there we go. So now we have our complete phonetic mouth. Oh, we don't. Oh, I didn't want to move that. In fact, I didn't want to move it from here. There we go. Now let's test the timeline. There we go. Alright. So now let's go back to the main line. And I want to make sure that that mouth control is not overriding our arms and legs and everything else. So do this and then rotate this. Yeah, just the mouth. Perfect. So now we can see each different phoneme that we might want to use, but we don't want the chart coming on automatically. So let's go back into the phonetic mouth, and we're going to just select the bone for the phoneme wheel. And now that it's selected, it's the one that's red. And we're just going to remove everything red for that. So now the phoneme wheel is off. We should be able to go back. And now we can turn our phoneme wheel on when we need it and off when we don't. So let's say, okay, straight down. So just move it. Or you can just move it around till you find the one you need. So now we can apply this to lip syncing. But as I was saying earlier, these features when we do this are added. So if we wanted to say, oh, let's make the character whisper. Now all those phonetics work, but the mouth is in a whisper shape. Or we can say, let's make it shout. Now all the phonemes are shouting phonemes. So this is more versatile than any mouth I've seen online. I've looked at a lot of other people's idea of doing mouths, and honestly, I feel that my method is better than all the others I've seen because we've got full functionality. We've got the phonetics, 12 of them. We could make 42 if we needed to. If we wanted to do the entire English language, we could do a different phoneme for each one and have a new mouth chart that had 42 different positions on it. Probably not necessary. And we can make slight alterations as we need them once we've gotten whatever we are looking for. So we go, well, we want M, but we want the character smiling about it. So we can go M, but really that doesn't look like it. That more does. But that's the point. These are additive. And when we go back to here, these are not reset to what they should be, to nothing. They're reset to whatever we set them to. So if we put these back to all neutral, and the easiest way to do that is to grab B for bone, simply grab them all, and then reset the angle. And now they're all back to neutral. So when we work them out, it's going to be from the neutral phonetics throughout. So there we go. And if you watched my prior videos, you know that I used to play with little puppets as a kid and marionettes. And since I understand these to be called puppets, I lay my controls out as if it was a puppet control board. So there would be, if you wanted to imagine it, there'd be a main control stick going up the length of this here, and then a cross beam at each of these different sections to operate the features of the puppet. So there are 3 ways I use the bones that Moho provides, and I know there are many more, and I know that Moho provides a specialized bone for doing what I'm doing with a standard bone. And I'll explain the difference when we get to that. So, if you were watching last time, we got all the way to getting the eyes working, the blink fully functional, the up and down for the eyes, the size of the pupil. So everything was done up to the point of doing the head turn and the head tilt. And if you'll remember, I've moved these control bones off the control board over here for the hands to the wrists, so that when working on the hands, we're going to zoom in and we're going to want to pose the hand. So that's where these control bones, which are part of the puppet control, come into play. And yes, they could be over here, but I find that I like to look at the hand up close when I'm posing it. It's just that much easier to get everything right. So as you can see, the fingers are working for just as they are at the side view. The reason I use a side view on the hands is that I originally tried to do it with the thumb up, then flipping around to the thumb down, and that way we would be able to see the front of the hand and the back of the hand, and you wouldn't have to worry about putting the thumb behind the hand unless you know, if you needed that, then you could do it in animation work instead of having it an action that does it automatically. So over time I developed the layout where it's all in line when you design it. It's all laid out straight as if it's at the halfway point between flipping the thumb up and flipping the thumb down. And then the other lever allows us to not only look at the back of the hand and the front of the hand, but allows us to interlace the fingers so that the hand becomes almost 3D, which is why they call Moho 2.5D, because you can simulate a lot of 3D effects if you know how the software works. Also, there is a Z-axis where you can place elements away from you based on distance. That's a bit more complex to work with, and you have to remember that your puppet is still a flat object. It is not 3D. So we can do like a diorama. If you were in school as a little kid and you were given a project where you looked through a shoebox and an image that with one eye, it kind of looks 3D because you've got the cutouts placed at different distances. That's exactly how Moho works. Our images, our characters are basically a flat cutout, and we can place them in the Z-axis distance away from each other. I've played with it a bit. I've done a couple of buildings in the kids' room for the twins, Solari and Talar. But right now we're working on the Bugillagers, which are Solari and Talar's favorite characters, of course. And so I'm going to start with the hands. I'm not going to do the head turn until after I got the hands. And the head turn and the head tilt and the hands, that will be the completion of this part 3. Then in part 4, I will do the digital DNA over here, which allows us to create an unlimited to us, basically, number of different characters of the same species. So take a look at my Any Yellow Ant videos, digital DNA, Any Yellow Ant, and that'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's get into this. We need to see our chart, our 3-finger object hand. So I've already brought that in. I created this chart after I worked out how to do the complex hand. And this is where we get our finger interlaces. So this is the index finger, the middle finger, the pinky finger, the thumb, the object in hand, and the palm. Now I added object in hand, but in every one of the cases, that object is simply a stick and it's invisible. So if we go into the arm and the hand here, you can see here the object is orange here. And if I turn it on, well, you can't see it right now because it's hidden by the thumb, but it is simply a placeholder in the hand. So when working with the character, say we need this ant to carry a rock, we can easily come in and change the object to the rock. We just simply make our rock and then paste it into the object layer. And then it will work with the hand because it's part of this layout. And that means that the fingers will interlace around the object in hand. So, let's get started. We're going to do the bone right here first. Let's get to the bone layer. Alright, and we want to be in the construction frame. In fact, let's clear the animation. We don't need any of the animation we just did. So we're going to erase all of that. That doesn't affect what you've done to actions or your characters, so don't be afraid of using the clear animation. And if you've worked on an animation, say you get to 120 frames in and you don't like what came after 96 frames, but you can, and it was a lot of work. You put like an hour in it, but it still didn't look right, and you just want to erase it and start over. You can go to 96 and on your frames and then tell it to clear the animation from that point forward on the layer. So from this layer, it would mean whichever layer you've selected. So if I had made changes on just the right arm, I could go to the right arm and remove just those changes. But I'm trying to design my characters so that that's not required while building an animation once the character is created. Anyway, so, and we can clear from before the current frame or from the frame at the current frame and from the whole document. And that's generally the one I use, is I just clear the whole document. And that just simply means you're clearing the timeline. It's not clearing anything else within the document. So now, I'm going to create the action. Let's select this bone, there we go. And this is going to be the one that twists the wrist so that the fingers are either thumb up and the fingers are laid out one above the other with the pinky on the bottom, index on top, or flip it down with the thumb pointing down. So we're going to create the action, and it's called the left wrist twist because that's basically what we're accomplishing. We're going to start by rotating this lever bone down, and that represents the first position for this action. And because I'm using minus 32, 32 for the range of the constraints, we want to use 65 as our maximum position. Now we could jump to any number. It really wouldn't matter. We could use any number on the timeline. But using 65 makes our movements one image change per degree. Now, if you want a much smoother effect, you would increase the numbers. I would just double it, so we go to, I double the 64, not the 65. You double the 64 and then add 1. So we go to 129, because 64 and 64 is 128. You add 1, so we could go to 129 and have that be our maximum for the changes. And that would give us 129 different possibilities. Alright? But 65 is generally good enough. It's like the difference between using 24 frames per second on your video or using 30 frames per second on your video. The effect to the viewer is negligible. It's there, you can look for it and see the difference. But to a standard user who's not looking for how many frame rate is it basically looks the same to the end viewer. Yes, you can make it different and better, but it costs memory to do so. Remember, anything you add is increasing the amount of memory that's required to maintain the puppet. And the more memory you add, the slower your computer goes, as you can see with mine, and the longer it takes you to get your job done. So remember, you want to add features to the point where it's functional, but it's not memory intensive. Alright, so we're going to go 65. We're going to rotate the bone all the way up. So now as we move along the timeline, the bone moves on the timeline. And in reverse, when we exit to the main line, when we move the bone, any actions on the timeline will be played out. So with the lever up, we're going to want the thumb up. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I'm on the bone layer. We're going to select the bone for the thumb. That's right here. And we're going to select the bone that stretches the thumb by holding shift. I'm going to grab those both. Whoops. I have to hit B first. Then I can grab them both. And now I hit T, and I can move them together as a single unit. And basically I want to bring it up to about where the bottom of the thumb is touching the palm as it lays flat. Then what we're going to do is separate the fingers. So you can see we've got 3 different lengths, and that's pinky, index, and middle finger. And so the pinky is green, and in this case needs to be opposite the thumb, so green goes down. So we're going to zoom in close, hit B for bone, select that first bone for the base of the pinky, and then hold shift and select the stretcher for that bone. Now hit T and zoom out so we can see what we're doing. And I'm holding shift, so I'm only moving in one direction. I cannot move left or right unless I go back to the origin. So now I can bring this down while holding shift, and I don't have to worry that it's going out or in more than it should. Now we want the fingers to just barely be touching, just like that, when the hand is fully opened. And now we're going to go in and do the forefinger. Here we go. B for bone. Select this bone. Hold shift. Select that bone. Scroll out. Hit T. And now hold shift. Anyway, so at 33, we want to be reset back to our static or 0 point. So it needs to look exactly like this at 33. And the reason is because if you don't do this, you don't release any of these bones to be worked on with other actions. And that's why Moho, instead of explaining it and trying to get people to understand it, they simply did a routine that splits it into 2 actions. Your 0 is the bottom of your action, basically. Your number 1 position, and you're done. You don't have to think about it. But we need to think about it, is the way I do it. And so I'm going to grab those bones and these bones. So B for bone, and holding shift, grab these bones and these bones. And I'm just going to reset what I've changed, is the positioning. So we go up here to position and hit reset. Now at 33, the hand returns to the at rest state, and those bones can be acted upon by other actions. It's important you have the reset point be at the center of wherever you put your 0, not the center necessarily, but wherever you put your 0 on your constraints. Okay? So when you look at the constraints of your bones, let's go to this control bone here. So if we go to the constraints, you can see that there's angle constraints of minus 32 to 32. If you got out a protractor, like in school, and you went from minus 32 degrees to 32 degrees, and you counted every position, you end up with 65. Okay? The 0 counts as a point. Now, we can go to 0 to 365, or 380, or 900. It doesn't matter. the program will work with us. That's the beauty of Moho. We can do so much if you understand what I'm trying to explain right now. So if we put this at 0 and put this at 1,000, we could have 1,000 different actions here, and it would happen by rotating the circle multiple times, because there's only 360 degrees. So the moment you go to 361, you're not repeating. You've got to understand that. You're going to 361, and that's important. So when you do an action on a bone that wants to do a rotation, it's important you understand when you get around back to the top, you have to reset to continue with another rotation. Or you can do it another way, which I've done with my wagon, where you can assign an outside bone to the wagon bone and move the outside bone and force the wagon bone to rotate again and again and again. But it's not like creating an action. There's a difference. So anyway, at minus 32 to 32, we have 65 positions. The 0 position is where we must release all the actions we've changed, all the things we've changed from our static character's position. All right, so this is 0 on our protractor. This is minus 32 here. So at minus 32, what do we want? We want the thumb to come down. So we're going to go into the thumb again, selecting the control bone for the length of the thumb. Oops. And then shift to get them both. T to select the transform tool. Shift to hold them in place and drag them straight down. Now I can't move left or right, no matter what I do. And again, we're just going to overlap where the palm of the hand is with the inside part of the thumb. But actually, this is not correct, because you can see the thumb's not pointing outward as it should be. So what we need to do is go to this bone, and we're going to flip it on its long axis. And that puts the thumb in the right direction. The problem is that's going to stay that way all the way through unless we change it. So at 32, we want to make sure it's still like this. So I'm going to double tap this, and that makes the program flip it at 32, and it'll stay down. But then at 33, we want to reset it. And you can see we've got little markers here showing us that we have indeed flipped that bone. Now we flipped it back to neutral, and it will stay neutral throughout except for its position. Okay, so now we've got our flipping thumb, and if we needed it to point straight out, that's pretty easy. We can just move this bone to go in line with the fingers. So you've got full control of the thumb, and now we've got it all the way down to here. Now we go back to the other bones. We're going to go with the pinky finger. So we go B for bone, select the green, which is pinky, hold shift, and it's control bone for the length. Hit T, hold shift, and drag it up until it's just barely touching the middle finger. So, or just barely not touching. We'll go right there. Then we're going to go in and we're going to grab the forefinger, which is the light blue, or the cadet blue they call it, and we're going to grab that and shift and grab the other one, hold T and shift and drag the finger down. So now we've got our fingers will flip with our hand. The forefinger and the thumb stay together, the thumb flips, and we've got everything but our palm of the hand working. So now we're going to go back to 65, may as well. And then we're going to change the palm. To change the palm, we need to go into the character. We grab the palm of the hand, which is this hand. And the palm. And all I do to begin with is I select all of it, including my little palm mark, and hit T. Holding Alt makes the object that you're working on stay centered in its current centering. So as I go Alt and stretch, the hand will stretch, but it will stay centered in that position. So we're going to go until our little finger and our forefinger. Let's turn off the thumb so we can see what the palm is doing. So this particular palm shape is a bit extreme when we get the fingers lined up here. And when you draw a palm in the rest state, it's hard to tell what it's going to end up looking like here. But with enough points, we simply correct for it. So I'm going to go G to grab, and I'm going to grab these 2 points, hit T, and holding Alt again, guaranteeing I'm not changing the centering. I'm going to bring that down to look more like a regular palm. And then I want to bring this point up a bit so that we have a bit of a rounding for the finger. Then these points should go in the middle of the finger so that we've got our knuckle look. Alright, so what we're going to do now is turn off the fingers, and we're going to make the knuckles look like knuckles. So that's much too flat. So we're hit curve and grabbing the points. We're going to stretch it out. Let's see, I can't see where is. There we go. So now I can see my Béziers. So I want to do some rounding here. So we're going to round this pinky knuckle about like that. Then holding Alt, we can separate the Béziers for a single point, and we can stretch them like this, and we simply make our knuckle. So now when the hand is not flat, we've got knuckles, so that when we close the fingers down, there's knuckles there. Okay, so now we can turn our fingers back on and our thumb. And what we want to do is duplicate this exactly in the other direction, but we don't have to do each one of those little changes because they're kind of custom and exacting, and you know, they'd be very hard to match identically without making a duplicate, blah blah blah. So we hit T and make sure we grab the palm, and I think that should be a little longer too. So let's before we do any changes, we're going to stretch this. So just bring it out till it's touching the thumb there, like that. Now I'm going to grab all of that and hit the, we want to grab the red points here once all of those are selected. They all need to be selected. Then we select the red points here, and we go Control C to copy. We go to position 1 on the timeline and Control V to paste. And there we have the duplicate of the palm. The thing is, we need it reversed, so we're going to simply do that here, and we've reversed it. So now we've got our hand in both directions, but with the hand it's going to be a little funky because as it comes to the 33 point, it squishes it so it can flip it over. So we want to make sure it flips only when we want it to. So at 33 we're going to reset. So we want to make sure that any changes we've made are reset back to normal, including the curve changes. See there? So now we're back to normal, and from here up it works beautifully. But from here down, it's still going to do that unless we go to 32 and flip the hand now. So we've got to grab it just like we did before, and we're going to flip it pointing down just like that. And now it'll work properly opening up. So our hand points down with the thumb down, comes back to center, and the thumb goes up. So there we go. That's the hand's ability to rotate. And we're going to now go back to the main line and go to the bone layer. And then we're going to manipulate the bone. Well, we're going to go to animation frame 1, and then we're going to manipulate the bones and test everything out. So here's our thumb, and we can rotate it out. Let's get rid of our 3-finger object for now. We'll be back shortly. So there we go. We've got our thumb is in the hand. Now you can see it's a little bit in to the palm, but I think that's fine in this character. Yeah, each character should be unique from other characters, in my opinion. There should be some changes. But the thumb works, looks like a thumb. The fingers can be twisted and turned into any shape that you need. The thing is, we're stuck with them in this position unless during animation we go in and rearrange their order here. So we want to do that. We want to change that order without having to resort to going into the character's construct. We want to do it out here when we're animating. So we got to put the hand like this, and we want to put the fingers crossed. So we want that, but this finger should be on top of the other two. Well, we can't do that here. So no, without changing this here. So that's what we're going to work on. And that is this one here. And we're going to create a new action for it. Make sure we're in the bone layer. We're going to do construction frame. Although you can create an action from anywhere. So if you were in the middle of animating and you find yourself repeating something over and over and over, make an action out of it. And you don't have to go back and start over on the character. You just create it right where you're at, and then it's available everywhere. So you don't have to go to the construction frame to create an action. It's just a good practice if you're building the character to be in the construction frame, to ensure that you're in the construction frame. And the easiest way to do that, thanks to Moho programmers being very smart, there's a red border when we're in the construction zone that's not there when we're in the animation zone. So you always can tell, am I in construction, by looking for the red border. That tells you we're in the right place. So we're going to create an action for the left hand reverse. Actually, I've changed the name to that. Let's change it to left hand finger interlace. So, or just left finger interlace. We don't need hand. So finger interlace. Because that's what I'm really doing. The flipping of the palm was how I initiated this idea. But it evolved to, well, let's do the fingers as well. So before I do anything else, let's rename this one as well to, or not that one, this one, to right finger interlace. All right, so back to our action for the other hand. So we're going to create the action, and we want to turn on our 3-finger object hand chart, because while I'm getting pretty good at putting this together, I guarantee you I could not do it the first time without this chart. So if I have to do 4 fingers, I can remove the object and make that the 4th finger, technically, but the 4 fingers will be more complex. But since at 3 fingers I'm only using every other degree of movement out of our 65 available, that means at 4 fingers I could probably do the entire interlace with 65. I'll have to try it. I haven't tried it with 4 fingers yet, so that's going to be more work. So we go to 65 as we're used to, and that's our mass bone. Needs to rotate all the way to the right. So there we go. And now we want to see our interlace chart. And we're going to start at 1, not at 65. And we're going to make the fingers look like this. Now, in order to do that, you have to go into the hand. And if you can see, there's a little cascade icon here. So if we go into the hand and the properties, under depth sort, we've enabled animated layer order. That means during animation, we can change the layer order of anything within this group. Okay? It only works within this group. This is a group effect. So that means all of the fingers and thumb, and object and palm, I can move them around with each other during animation. So we need that on. And now we're going to create an action. Now, once you create an action to do the interlacing, you cannot come in and change it manually. So make sure you've set it up how you want it to begin with. I've set it up the way I want it, and I've colored it so that the bones are colored to match, and it makes everything easy to work on. And I'm thinking of people coming after me. So another animator comes in, they don't want to see a puppet that's got B1, B2, B3 and doesn't tell them anything about what those bones are. Also the same with your layers. Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 means nothing. If I have to go in to find out this layer is the pinky finger, this layer is the middle finger, and so on, it's a lot of work for whoever comes after me. So taking the time to name the parts, name the bones, and make sure the actions are named where they're understandable what's happening is important for those that come after. That's why I go to all this work. I understand I don't have to, but if you want to come use my puppet, I guarantee you're going to be happy that I've done this. So, at 1, we need index, middle, pinky, thumb, object, palm. So, we come over here, we can see it's currently thumb, forefinger, middle finger, pinky, object, palm. So we want object, palm is fine. And we're going to bring the thumb down to object, right above object. And it's going to take time. This is a long process. I've done it a dozen times. So it takes time to do it. So the thumb is now thumb, object, palm. The object is invisible, but we're going to turn it on while we work so we can work with it. So now we can see that everything is where we want it, and that TOP, thumb, object, palm, you can see that stays static for these 6 action positions. So these 6 activities within the action are not going to change over the next 6 iterations. And each iteration is every other only odd numbers, basically. So we've got our layout for the first position. We're going to jump to 3 by using the keyboard cursor control. So we're now on 3 on our timeline, and we're going to change these to middle, index, pinky. So the forefinger comes into the middle between middle and pinky. I should have named these index instead of forefinger. So I'll probably change that, but not right this minute. So now we've got M-I-K, and T-O-P. So we go to 5, and now we do the same. We're going to move the pinky to the top, then the index, and then the middle finger. So basically, the middle finger comes to the bottom. And we just want to double check the hand and make sure that we haven't skipped any actions or activities within the action. And now we go back to the main line. So now we can test it by going to the bone layer. Let's go to frame 1 in the animation frame. So now you can see our fingers are laid out as they were before, with the forefinger over the middle finger and the pinky underneath. Then of course we got the thumb over here. Let's do it this way. We're going to bring this thumb. Let's go ahead and stretch the thumb so it's as long as it can be. Oh, we haven't done our stretches, have we? I didn't stretch the fingers. Oh no, I should have done that. Alright, so we're going to put the thumb, and well, we can't really show this off until I stretch the fingers. I mean, we can show that the fingers change position over top of each other, and show that the thumb is there, you know, and it goes underneath of certain fingers at certain times. So right there you can see it's over the middle finger, but if we move further along, we can put the back of the palm pointing towards us, and now you can see the fingers are overlapping each other and different interlacings all the way through. So we can basically do every interlacing we need. And if we bend the fingers in, which we're going to work on next because I didn't know I missed it, then the fingers would bend inward and we would see just the knuckles here. So, and everything's behind the palm instead of in front of it. And we can manipulate everything just as we could before, but now the fingers can cross whichever way we want them to cross. Alright, so the next thing is to do the... I should have done all the fingers here before I did the other hand. Well, nothing to do about it now except to delete what I put in over on the left hand, or the right hand. But I'm not going to do that, so not right this way anyway. So let's go and do those finger stretches we should have done before we did the wrist twist. So we're going to start with the thumb extend, create an action for that. Make sure we're in the correct arm here, left hand. Waiting on the software. We need to be on the bone layer first. I didn't mean to jump way down and back up like that. Let's go back to the bone layer. We're going to rotate the bone all the way to the left for position 1, jump to 65, rotate all the way to the right. And when we're all the way to the right, the two bones here are going to be longer. So B for bone, and select those two bones. We're going to go to their length at scale and make it 125%. So it's simply going to be longer. Then at 33, we're going to reset those bones back to what they were. You can see it showed 112, we want it to be 100. And don't type in 100, always use the reset. And why didn't it reset? Oh, this button. There you go. And so now at the smallest or shortest position, we're just going to shorten them to, let's go 50%. Alright, so there's our short thumb and our long thumb. So we need the thumb basically pointing directly outward towards us. We might take this down to 25. Let's see what that looks like. That's too much, I think. Let's try 30. That is close. Let's go 35. There we go. So at the shortest, it's 35. It's kind of like pointing towards us. And then now it's flat against the, or flat out away from the hand. And then stretching the finger against the skin of the other finger. Or just doing kinetic stretching, arching. So there we go, the thumb stretch. And we're going to do back out to the main line. Scroll goes really slow. This up a little bit. Getting quite a few actions here in this character. Alright, so there's our short finger because we're in the timeline. So now let's go to our stretch the forefinger, or the index. Grab that bone, create an action, forefinger extend. Now this is going to be a lot more complex than just doing the thumb, but this is how we're going to get our hand to be fully dynamic. I don't know if anybody's watching me on Twitch right now. I would have to log into Twitch to find out. You can broadcast without actually connecting where you can see what's happening. Alright, so we rotate that bone all the way to 1, jump to 65, rotate all the way. So the index finger is the coral blue, the cadet blue. Sorry. So we're going to grab that bone, and we're going to grab the tip bone as well this time. Holding shift, we've got both of those bones. And we're stretched outward, so we're going to change their scale to 125%. Then at 33, it's going to be reset back to normal. And then when we want it to curve into the palm of the hand, we want it to be rotated around and into the palm of the hand. And we're going to lose some length, so we're going to take it down to 90. So you can point your finger further out than you can point it inward. So I'm doing that here. Probably should be like 70% instead, but I generally go 90 on this. Then at 15 and 16, we're going to make our flip over happen. So at 15, I want the base bone, so I'm going to hit B for bone and only grab the base of the index. And I'm going to rotate. I'm holding shift, and that lets me go in 45-degree steps, and I want to just reverse it to the other direction. Then at 16, we want it back pointing the other way out, so we're going to bring it back around to our at rest state. So now, when we go from 16 to 15, the bone rotates, but we need it to stay rotated all the way to 1. So we're going to go to 1 and then rotate it again. So now it stays pointing this way until it gets to here, then it jumps the other direction. But we need one more thing to happen. We need the bone to be shortened as it's moving inward towards the palm, so that it looks like it's moving towards us basically and getting shorter. So we're going to zoom in, grab B for bone, and grab the tip bone as well. So now we've got them both selected again. And at 16 and 15 both, And our thumb is not turned on, so let's turn that back on. And we never worked with the object before. Let's do that before we do anything else. So with the wrist twist, with the wrist twist here, that object should be changing as the wrist turns. So as you can see, it's just laying there on top of everything. So what we need to do is, well, of course at center it's going to reset, but at 65 we're going to go into and pick up the object and hit T and hold Alt and just stretch it out. And let's stretch it all the way to the edge of the screen, if I can do it. It's frozen again. Alright, so go to right there. And then at 1, it's going to flip also a similar way, but we need it to flip completely with the hand. So we're going to grab it on top. Whoops. We're going to hold Alt while we grab it on top and flip it, and then stretch it again to the same distance. So just touching that bottom of the screen. So now as we rotate the hand, the object rotates with the hand. And if we change it where the thumb's on top of the object, then it will look like the character's holding the object and twirling the hand. So at 33, of course, we need to reset. So you can see it's really distorted. So we're just going to hit reset. So now it flips over, and it should flip immediately. So let's go ahead and do that here. I'm going to hold Alt and flip it to the same height that it was, basically. So at 33 and 32, it's almost identical. It looks like it's just barely sticking above the hand. And at 32, it's a little bit shrunk, and at 31, it's back to normal length. So there we go. So now we exit back to the main line. And there we go. We've got the thumb stretched. So we go to the bone layer. So, and we're in the animation frame. Let's go to 1. So we've got the thumb now where we can stretch it. So we can do that and move it over the object just like that. The fingers can now rotate into the palm of the hand. So let's straighten them out a bit here. And we're going to rotate them into the hand just like that. And so now it looks like we're holding onto the stick, but the stick's over top of our fingers, not the thumb. Let's take a look here at the thumb. Yeah. So all of our fingers are underneath the stick. Well, that's not what we want. We want all those fingers on top of the stick. Or we can do any combination. That's the whole point, is we can now interlace the fingers to be any kind of pattern we want. So there we've got the character holding the stick. And when we rotate the wrist, the stick is rotating with it. Now the thumb is doing some weird things because it's turned. So we just need to make sure we rotate it back down like that. So as we're twisting, whoops, as we're twisting, there we go. You kind of messed up the little finger there. But that's the point. We can do just about anything we want now with the layout of the fingers on the hand and with the object. And then we can put it behind. So all the way over, now the stick is still in the hand, but it's behind the palm and being held by those fingers. And of course we can stretch the fingers out and go, we're going that way. Alright, so now we can turn off the object because we're not using it in this animation. But you can see now that our hand is fully functional and can do practically everything a normal hand can do, except point straight out towards us at the screen. So that's the only drawback to all of this. We can use the palm of the hand bone that's highlighted there, and we can stretch it so that it looks more like the fingers pointing towards us, so that we can get that. And then we bring in the finger a bit, right at, remember, the middle, so there. So now it kind of looks like they're pointing out at the screen. Alright, so now we need to do the other hand. Alright, so we're going to leave it at this point today. I'm going to save this as a new number iteration. So this is going to be version 11. So this is each step I've taken to get to this point. You know, I've saved it multiple times. So let's just double check that the wrist twist works. The fingers, you gotta overlap them to find out if they're interlacing. But so, there we go. We can now extend the thumb out and overlap it as well, just a bit. So now we can see exactly what we're doing with the fingers. And I didn't do the object in hand on this one, but that's alright. I'll get that before I come back next time. So there we go. We've got our fully articulatable hands on both hands. They can be made to create just about any shape. And the reason I'm doing that much work on the hands is we want to do at least a pigeon version of American hand sign. So American, signing for the deaf, and so that we can have our characters talking to the deaf as well. I've got a book of 101 child signs, and so we'll use that to try to create some pigeon version of American Sign Language. So, but there we go. We've got our fully functional hand and wrist working on both. And as you can see, this is just using it, and it's good and slow. It's got to be my hard drive. So there we go. If you're not aware, hard drives are used as virtual memory. So when your computer needs to do certain things, it will store that temporary memory on your hard drive. So when your hard drive starts to fail, it can affect everything on your computer. And so I think that may be what's happening here. I don't know, and I won't know till I replace it to find out. I don't believe my characters are getting too complex, because this is very much like many other characters I've created, and I've gotten all the way through to digital DNA without having it be this slow. So I'm pretty sure the slowness is the fact that I'm recording, and I've got a failing hard drive on the computer that I'm recording with. That I don't believe it has anything to do with Moho at this point. So anyway, we're just waiting on my computer to catch up for Moho. So first thing we're going to do is rotate this bone down to its minimal position. Go to 65, rotate it up. So now we want the head tilted back where it looks like the eyes are receding away from us and that the antennae are receding away from us, but just a little bit. Okay, so first thing, I think we'll just try reducing the head size like that. And then on the antenna, I'm going to grab this bone and this bone. And let's do the tips as well. And we're just going to change the scale 2 degrees, or 2%. So let's go 9/8 here. There we go. And then we want the mouth and chin to seem as if they may be coming towards us a bit. Not a lot, but we're going to jump down to the mouth on the character and select its layer. Now you got to be careful when you're resizing with layer, because layer changes the stroke as well when it resizes. But let's just do the same thing. We're going to go 2%. So we're going to go 102 and 102. So that brings the mouth a little closer to us. And then let's drop down to the chin. So on the skull, went too far. We go to the skull. And we're going to grab just this portion, and I'm going to hit T, and again we want to scale it up 100 and let's go 103 on this one, because the chin is a little further out than the mouth. So now we've got our head tilting backwards. The eyes, because of the bones that are attached to the skull bone, those were automatically removed to the right place, but they were not resized. So we want them to seem like they're receding away. So we're going to change their size by 1 degree. So we're just going to go 99 and 99. And do the same thing on the right eye. 99 and 99. And I believe that should be enough. So let's scroll to 33. And now we need to reset everything we've done. So we've got to go here to the left eye and reset this scale. So we go here to reset that scale. Now it's back to normal. The right eye, we reset. And you can see a very subtle change. And we're just going to grab these bones. So these, now look, because we're in an action, Moho is telling us these bluer bones are the ones you've already made changes to. So those are the only bones I need to worry about putting back. So I'm just going to select, I'm just going to select these bones just like that, and then we have to be in the bone layer, and we're going to reset. So you can see here our scale is 98.3, and now we're back to 100. So we didn't change the angle on any of them, but we're going to go ahead and reset just in case, because it doesn't hurt to reset by releasing them within the action from the action. That's the whole point. So now let's take a look and see. There, that's the head tilting back, and I believe it looks pretty good. So now we're going to tilt forward basically the same way. So these antennae are going to get a little bit larger, and the bone we're looking at in the center as well. So let's change their scale to 105. And then that may be a little much, but we'll give it a try. Then we're going to go down to the mouth. And the scale on this is going to go into the opposite direction. So we're going to go 94. No, that's probably too much. Let's go 96 and 96. And then we go to the chin. And we've already got the red selected. Hit T. No, it grabbed the whole thing. So first want the red ones here. Oh, it did work. Okay, so T. Now we got those. So we're going to scale those down to 95. And now when we go back to the rest state, the head tilts down and then all the way back. So here at 33 is rest, tilts towards us, back, and away from us. Now if we want to exaggerate it, we can go in and grab the bones. So we're going to grab B for bone and grab the eye bone here and this eye bone here. And so with T, we're going to drag them down a little bit. And then at the back, we're going to raise them up a little bit. So now that gives a little more exaggeration to the head movement. Makes it look more rounded because the eyes are being affected. Now we need to reset at center though. So don't forget, when you move things, you've got to reset them. There we go. So now, as the head moves back, the eyes move a little bit more. As they come forward, it moves a little more. You can see it kind of looks disjointed here. Actually, these need to come down. I went up with them, and I should have come down with them. So we'll do that. There we go. So you can basically do what you need to make it look like what you want it to look like. I think that's a little too much on the coming down on the face here. So we're just going to go back in, holding shift, and move it back up. I think what's happening is my hard drive is storing data and it's failing, and that's why it's cutting everything out, even on simple stuff. So I'm sure it's not Moho. Alright, so now let's see what that looks like. The going back looks really good, but I don't think it's changing much. So let's take this back out. So coming forward, going back, that's just normal bone movement with the head. I think I'll just leave it just like that. So there is our head up and down, or tilt up and down. It could be much more exaggerated. Actually, I want to move a little bit on the skull. So let me go back to the action. We're still in it actually. Alright, so this is tilting. That's tilting back, and this is tilting forward. So when it's tilting forward, the skull is going to be turning towards us. So what we want to do is exaggerate this dip in the skull here. So I'm going to grab this point, drag it down, And we're going to bring these up a bit to exaggerate the back of the head coming up. Like that. So now, oh, that's on 2, that should have been a 1, so just move all that to 1. Now let's select the whole skull, then move all of it to 1. Alright, there we go. So now, at 33, we want to make sure we reset all of that. So now we get that effect that it's actually getting deeper as it's coming towards us. So of course, when it goes away, when the head's going away, we're going to lose that definition. So we're going to bring up and round out the center here. So it's as if he's got a bit of a skull coming forward, but as it goes back, it dips down deep. So he's not really that intelligent. But ants are communal. They only do a little bit of work each to create a massive multi-organism. But let's go ahead and take a look. So we've already reset, so it should automatically revert. So there we go. And there we go. So it's a little more than subtle. It's actually quite noted that that's happening. But it gives us more of a 3D effect to the head. So here I've sped everything up as my computer was going very slow on each action. As you can see, the flash outs there was the system not responding. So I completed the head turn here, both directions, and I explained how I use the rotate XY tool to get the basic look I'm looking for. Then I use that to capture that image, and then I import that image, and then I distort the image of the face to look like that turned head, but then I give it a back of the skull, because using the tool using the XY rotate tool does give us a depth perceptive effect on the capture, but it doesn't bring the skull around. So here you can see I'm matching the face, but I'm also going to match the back of the skull from my prior drawing of what I was wanting the character to look like when the head turned. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm matching both the skull turn drawing and then the face capture from using the rotate XY tool. And so here you can see I'm working on correcting all the parts of the skull to match. And of course we're going to need to bring the eyes over, and I'm doing that by bone, as you can see here. Moving the eyes with those control bones allows me to also then use digital DNA on this character and change the skull size, and it will still function with the eyes moving. If we didn't use these control bones, we would lose that effect. So there we go. I'm fixing the antennas and now the eyebrows. And you can see that all that flashing there, that was the hard drive. I have replaced the hard drive now and corrected that. And there was actually 2 hard drives involved, because I keep one drive and then a backup of that drive. And then every month or so, I make a complete backup of all the work I've done. So if one of my hard drives fails, I can go back to another one. So there we go. Oh, I must have taken a break there while I was transmitting on Twitch. So here I am fine-tuning what the head turn looks like. Making sure everything works together. And there I'm saving it.
Oh, that's fine. We don't want that one anymore.
Again, this is just trying to correct all of this.
Now we need to bring in an image.
And there's it. The moon. And now we make it transparent. And we need to be in the construction layer and reverse it. Then put it in place. And now we simply go back into the action and match the face to look like this other directional turn. And voila, we'll have our full head turn. So I'm not going to put you through me doing that at the moment, but when we come back it will be completed and we'll begin working on digital DNA. I'm going to try to do that Tuesday, so if you want to come back at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, if I am capable, I will be here and we will start the digital DNA for this character. Thank you for watching. Please visit dangeraware.org, see what we're doing. If you're a budding animator, you would like to help us, get a hold of us. You can email me at info@dangeraware.org and let me know you want to help, and I can give you access to our puppets and you can do some animation for us. So thank you for watching. If you can donate, please donate. If you can buy our apparel on our Teespring store and help support us that way, please do so. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day and keep animating.
Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Watch for the things that cause alarm, watch for the one that would do you harm. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Please be alert and be aware of all the dangers anywhere. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Stand your ground and speak out loud. Let the world know harm's all around. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Danger, danger. Danger, danger. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the